Ayubowan, and welcome. I'm so glad you're here to learn about sprint planning. Sprint planning sets the stage for an entire sprint. Do it well and you and your team will have a focused, productive sprint. Do it poorly and, well, let's just say you're much better off doing it well. So let's get into it. In this video, we're going to cover the ins and outs of effective sprint planning, a critical process in Scrum. I'm going to share practical tips and techniques that you can immediately start using with your own team. The first step to a good sprint plan is knowing how much your team can actually accomplish. To do that, you need to understand your team's capacity. Start by identifying who will be on the team during the sprint. You need everyone's name so that you can then list everyone's availability. Someone might be on vacation for part of the sprint or only working part-time. Be sure to capture all that. Once you know who's available and when, you can calculate the total available hours for the sprint. Finally, don't forget about your historical data. How many story points has this team been able to complete in past sprints? Factor that in too. With an understanding of your capacity, you can turn your attention to what your team will work on during the sprint. You'll start by looking at the product backlog with the product owner. The product owner is responsible for ordering the backlog from highest to lowest priority. They're the voice of the customer, or at least as close to the voice of the customer as we can get. Once you have a prioritized list of user stories, you can start estimating how long each one will take to develop. There are lots of ways to estimate, but one that works well is planning poker. It's fun and engaging and helps a team come to consensus on estimates. Now comes the time to actually decide how much work to bring into the sprint. This is where many teams get into trouble. They overcommit. But I think you're going to do better than that. You're going to set realistic sprint goals. Start by defining a clear sprint goal for the sprint. The sprint goal describes the outcome you're hoping to achieve. From there, you'll choose user stories that help you meet that goal. Don't be afraid to break large user stories down into smaller tasks. Doing so will make them easier to estimate and easier to complete. Chapter 4. Plan for uncertainty. No matter how good your plan is, something will go wrong. It always does. So be sure to plan for some uncertainty. One way to do that is to allocate some buffer time in the sprint. This is time that isn't allocated to any particular task. It's there to absorb any unexpected problems that might arise. Beyond buffer time, be flexible in your approach. Don't be afraid to adjust the sprint plan if needed. The plan should be a living document that evolves as the sprint progresses. Chapter 5. Conduct effective sprint planning meetings. All of this we've talked about culminates in the sprint planning meeting. It's where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. To make sure your sprint planning meetings are effective, start with an agenda. I like to start mine with a review of the previous sprint. From there, I like to move into a discussion of the sprint goal. Once the goal is set, we can talk about how to achieve it by discussing each story. Finally, the most important part of any sprint planning meeting is to get the team's commitment to the plan. Without that, the plan is meaningless. Chapter 6. Monitor and adjust your sprint plan. Once you have a plan, you're ready to go. The team starts working together, but the planning isn't over. The team needs to monitor progress and adjust the plan as needed. A great way to do this is with a daily scrum, also known as a daily stand-up meeting. In this short meeting, the team discusses progress and identifies any roadblocks. Beyond the daily scrum, encourage the team to communicate openly and transparently with each other. Finally, at the end of the sprint, conduct a sprint retrospective to reflect on what went well and what could be improved. Outro: Mastering Sprint Planning. Congratulations! You've now got the tools to master your sprint planning. Remember, sprint planning is an iterative process. Don't be afraid to adapt and adjust as you go. The more you practice, the better you'll become at planning realistic and achievable sprints. Good luck, and I'll see you in the next video.